Okay, welcome everybody to this episode of the Navigating Now virtual roundtable series. I am Anthony Ewing, a partner here at Thoughtium. I am joined by my esteemed colleague Anjana Raj, a consultant here at Thoughtium. And we are just thrilled to be at the table with you all today. We kicked off a new interactive virtual series by the name of Thoughtium Perspectives just a week ago. And we're extremely excited to dive in today. We're going to give you a bit of an overview of this offering, and we're going to dive right into a topic that is at the forefront of all of our minds as leaders, as employees, as corporate citizens. And we're going to unpack it in a fairly unique way, really bringing real-time insights to you, offering a very unique perspective, and most importantly, providing some very specific actions that you as leaders can take on a day-to-day basis. That is what Thoughtium Perspectives is all about. At Thoughtium, we create the space for unique perspectives. And today we're going to be talking about one that not only touches us as individuals, as employees, but really as citizens. You know, we're all feeling, the urgency around making the right choices for ourselves. And that's starting to affect some of the decisions we're making coming back to the workplace. And Perspectives is a series that allows us to unpack that in a way that brings you real-time insights and really makes your decision-making stronger, more dynamic. So before we dive in, and we've got the title of this month's series up here, I want to introduce our guest for today, Anjana. Anjana, say hello and welcome to the roundtable.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's exciting. I'm excited to talk about our topic today.
Yes, so our topic today is what we call work in progress. And we're going to be spending all of July on this topic of the new hybrid workplace. We know there's a lot of different opinions out there. There are a lot of pundits. We all have our own opinions in terms of how we are returning back to the workplace, how we are enhancing the way that we work together. A lot of organizations have been through just a tremendous amount of change over the last 18 months. And we feel like we are collectively at a point where we need some clarity. And that clarity is different for all organizations. So there's not one manual or one handbook on how to reintegrate as a team and as an organization. But what we'd like to do is share some perspective. And over the course of the next several weeks, we're going to be bringing leaders from different areas of our disciplines, the leaders that really are in the work every day here at Thoughtium, to the table, sharing insights that we're collecting from our community, providing a unique perspective in terms of how we're working with our clients to help them re-engage and to help them really navigate this new hybrid model. And again, provide some very specific anecdotes and actions that you can take on a day-to-day basis. So today's episode is all about workplace insights. We're going to be taking a step out of our day-to-day roles. We're going to be really focusing on insights that are coming at us from the external marketplace. We call this kind of standing at our doorstep and looking out. As we all are trying to figure this workplace out, we all have day-to-day responsibilities, and oftentimes we catch ourselves with our heads down. So we're going to be looking up and out. We're going to be in the clouds today a little bit, and Anjana is going to take us there. So Anjana, talk to us a little bit about our process here and the process that we're going to follow for Thoughtium Perspectives.
Absolutely. So again, thank you for having me. Excited to talk about this. So there's a lot of information just floating in the ethos about what to do, how to process this information, how do we feel about it, what are corporations doing? And with that kind of language and emotions swirling around, it can be hard to figure out what to go or where to go from here. So we've tapped into a really impressive industry research by We Are Rosie. They publish an annual report about the workplace, and this year's report is more relevant than ever. So we've looked at a very close eye on what they've published. And what they've done to gather that data and talk to the marketplace. But we've also tapped into our own communities to hear what they have to say and the concerns that they're facing as they're reintegrating into the physical workplace.
Yeah, we love the folks at We Are Rosie. They're also a part of the Navigating Now community. So here we are almost 14 months into the Navigating Now series. And we're starting to really learn more from those leaders and those organizations that have been a part of this community. And we spoke to a few of the leaders in the We Are Rosie organization. Gosh, it was almost a year ago. And they were really starting to chalk the field in terms of what does the future workplace look like? And We Are Rosie is a perfect example of an organization that is demonstrating the future workplace. They are a group of extremely talented professionals. They manage a network of 7,000 plus marketing professionals, and they do it all virtually. And they've been doing this for a while. So we wanted to tap into their report, as we start to understand how we're moving into more of a virtual model, and B, because the insights that they bring are extremely relevant and extremely current. So Anjana, let's dive into the insights of this new hybrid work model, and what did the Rosie report really bring to the forefront of our thinking?
Sure. So when we look at what the marketplace currently looks like, there seems to be a divide in expectations. One is that 70% of leaders are expecting their employees to come back into the physical workplace by fall of 2021. But then Rosie also surveyed people that are employees, and we are looking at 58% of employees would look for a new job if they weren't allowed to continue working remotely. So there's this divide that's creating not only tension, but there's a lot of feelings about how we reintegrate back into this physical space.
Yeah. This data here suggests that there really is a divide, and it's not just in the numbers. You can really feel it.
Yeah.
And for many organizations, it's healthy tension.
It is.
As well too. And we're going to talk a little bit about the dialogue that has emerged from this type of I won't call it polar opposites, but this type of a kind of diverging schools of thoughts that are kind of happening within organizations. But you can tell in the numbers that a real dialogue needs to be had here.
Yeah. And kind of the impetus for this is that for 15 months we worked from home. We really got a chance to look at what we were giving up in being able to provide more of our time. Essentially, this is a conversation about our time and what we're doing with it. So we've been intimately aware of how we've spent it, how we've been coping with such a traumatic experience globally, and what that looks like. And we as a society get to shape what work looks like, and it's an important conversation for all of us to have.
Yeah, that's great. So what else did the Rosie report tell us about the new hybrid work model?
So they surveyed about 2,100 survey responders, and 100% of them wanted the option to work remotely. So that's a pretty staggering number. When we look at what that data looks like separately, ultimately it's the talent decides where they want to go, because the marketplace, one, is super competitive, and two, they've kept up productivity during the 15 months they were working from home. You have to really make, as a company, a compelling case as to why you want your employees back.
Yeah, that's interesting. Choice, right, is at the center of all of this.
Yes.
And I think, it's always been a nice to have, in the past. Particularly for smaller organizations, someone like myself who came from kind of the larger corporate infrastructure, I was so attracted to the startup space because I saw that there was choice in some of the newer organizations, even prior to the pandemic, that were creating cultures and workplaces that allowed people to have a little bit of variability. Well, now we're in a world where organizations, large and some of the largest ones, are having to create choice, and they're having to do it in a very short period of time, no?
Yeah. And, culture is hard to change. And so we're at this, point of this crossroads of where do we want the future to go, and how much influence do we all want to have in creating it?
Yeah. And again, 100% of respondents want the option
Just
to work remotely. I mean, you'd think that would be, 90 or 97%, but 100% of people want that option.
I think that speaks to the humanity in all of us, that we all have lives that sometimes ebb and flow within the wants and needs of what our commitments are. And so it's the option, it's the choice, like you said.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay. What else did we find from the Rosie report?
So, with that divide of employees and leaders feeling differently about reintegration, 40% of employees are thinking about switching their jobs if they're not allowed to continue work remotely. And 2 in 5 want flexible hours, 1 in 5 want even the option to choose what they're working on. And whether it's what motivates these choices and options, it is where the marketplace is headed. So talent has a lot of power in this current state.
Yes, there is a term that was coined maybe 3 or 4 years ago, the great migration, or the great kind of leaving of organizations. There's a term for it, right?
Exodus, maybe?
Maybe the great
Yeah,
exodus,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
But I mean, there's been some powerful verbiage around the agency that employees are
Yes.
taking
Yeah.
as they navigate their lives.
Yeah.
And their lives now come first, and at all costs. And even if that is a significant shift in role or even in organizations, they are willing to take that risk.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've ever seen numbers in engagement surveys or global reports
Yeah.
that are this strong, that most, if not close to most employees are willing to leave their organization if they don't have that agency and they don't have that choice.
I think before it's very individualistic. If you made choices to, whether it was flexibility or deciding to take a day off, it was your own ecosystem and echo chamber that you did that.
Yeah.
Whereas this was global. We all
Yeah.
experienced this together, and we realized that there are sacrifices that we're making, and are we still continuing to make them? And what are our non-negotiables as we go forward?
Yeah, it's interesting to think about what would have, and as you look at the Rosary Report years past,
Yeah.
Some of these things showed up, but what the bottom line here is that there is a significant divide, that employees require different options, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to find that optionality.
Yeah.
And again, I just don't know if that has come through as strongly as it ever has in this past year.
Yeah, and I think we've been quietly making those decisions, but this time it's been, everyone feels amplified and motivated and empowered to say that, yeah, maybe this isn't what I'm looking for. Yeah.
I love that point about we've been quietly making those decisions. And we're going to talk in a bit about Thoughtium's perspective. Coming from a 4-year-old startup organization that is growing and scaling through a pandemic and beyond. I think even in a small organization where everybody clearly has a voice here, some of that decision making still would be done outside of the confines of your managerial relationship or even your peers within the workplace. Decisions you're making about how you're managing your children, and how you're homeschooling, and how much time you can provide to show up to work, whether physically or even emotionally. And even in a small organization, there was a bit of separation, right, between those choices that were being made and even the criteria, and interacting and being in partnership with your team. Now, like that, those lines have been crushed, right?
Yeah, you're in people's living rooms and bedrooms through Zoom. So the boundaries of what was once work and what isn't is blurred. And so you're going to know more intimate details about people's lives, including whether that's childcare, elderly care, commitments that we all have that we put a veil on when we come into work. That veil wasn't available anymore.
What we're seeing here, and what we're seeing here is not necessarily completely out of the realm. And we've been talking about a lot of this the last few months. What we really do want to focus in on is what we can do as leaders to meet the needs of our employees, that are really asking us for a new type of dialogue around this. And we're going to touch on that in a moment. But we really feel strongly about bringing the outside in, and we do that in a couple of different ways. So if the Rosary Report was just a really good, very current, kind of validated academic approach to how employees are feeling about the new virtual hybrid or hybrid model, we went maybe a step further, right? And we had a little bit of fun with it. So tell us about some more insights that we were able to gather from our community and from our clients.
Yeah, so the Rosary Report gave us a really nice macro view of the marketplace. But what we'd like to also tap into is our own community, because one, they're real people. So we get to hear human stories about how they're feeling. So I love that. Two, it's about the community that we currently engage in every day. So being able to hear their thoughts and concerns adds great value to the conversations that we're having.
Yeah.
So we pulsed our community through major social networking sites. So we started with LinkedIn. The views were great, but maybe the polling, they just didn't feel maybe comfortable or engaged. So we went to Instagram and Twitter to get more data. We asked them really compelling questions.
Yeah. I learned a lot from this process, Anjana. We spun up Thoughtium Perspectives just 2 weeks ago.
I know.
And I'm a big fan of, design sprints and organizing around really great ideas. We very quickly got extremely creative with the way that we shaped this perspective. And we continue to challenge ourselves to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And even up to the last 12 or 14 hours of us preparing for this, we realized that there's more and more of our community that we can tap into. And I want to make a note, for those folks who tune into this that are building businesses or even thinking about building businesses, this is one of those unbelievably fun and unique experiences that you can have as a small business that you might not be able to get in a larger organization. The ability to truly be in the ground game and on the ground level with your employees, with those folks in the community. And in this case, our ability to pulse our community. And we had fun with it. So again,
within the last 72 hours, we were able to get this data.
All of the insights that you're going to see here were gleaned in the last 3 business days. We used a myriad of different channels, and I actually didn't think that yesterday would end with me creating an Instagram story with a poll asking my friends the same questions. Yes, I shout out to Emily De Silva who helped me build this. But I think we all again just learned a lot from this process, and we also learned that people were excited to step into this conversation. So let's share some of the thoughts that we got from our maybe fairly low fidelity approach, but by design over the last couple days. And the results are very telling. So we'll go ahead and share the first insight that we got from some of the Thoughtium research.
So the first question really, targets the emotion behind this new approach that we're getting to. So as companies start implementing a hybrid work strategy, what makes you feel uneasy? There is this pit in our stomach where there is an anxiety that's building, and maybe it's a low hum, but I think it's there for all of us. And so what does that look like? And what's the most uneasy thing that's coming out of it? So 63% of people said loss of flexibility. And it makes sense. So being able to kind of have your entire day ebb and flow between work and life, whether that's being able to watch your children as you're working, whatever it is, it's that flexibility is going to be much more segmented. So it makes sense. The other options that we provided were health and safety, of course, coming off the pandemic, equitable opportunities for people who are in the office versus people who are remote. So making sure they both have the same set of resources and opportunities available to them. Then flipping too soon, for me, actually, that's my concern. I went down this path of 15 months of working one way and then now expected to flip another way. And I feel like my social skills are still catching up.
Yeah.
And of course, the others are the unknown. But it's very telling that 63% of people are afraid of the loss of flexibility.
We had this moment, it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, where we had a handful of folks responsibly come to the office.
Yeah.
We had a few new hires and a few folks here in Chicago. And it was the first time that we had 5 or 6 folks in the office. And I think we all went into it, again, just almost wanting to or willing to flip the switch. But what we realized is that it took real intentionality to coexist in an office space. Again, we almost had to relearn how to interact without the partition of the Zoom screen.
Yeah.
And I always joke, and I've been joking about how there was this almost collective like rising of everybody's voice, because when you're behind a Zoom, you have to wait your turn to kind of speak in, and nobody's screaming into the microphone.
Right.
But when you are in a conference room or an office space, there's the ability to talk over, to elevate your voice. And it was almost like we had to relearn how to be humans again. And so, what resonates here is the flipping too soon piece, but the flexibility allows us to come into the workplace. And then also to have some time to, kind of assimilate, right? And to decompress a little bit. Because had that meeting that we had for a day and a half been an entire week, we would have been physically exhausted.
Oh, for sure.
And that's something that, all of us could have handled a 5-day work week, just 2 years ago. And then we would have
social activities on top of that. We used to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And, I want to also highlight that this is inconsistent with the Rosie report, what they also showed. So even though we tapped into our own community, there's a through line for what the marketplace is saying, whether that's our own or macro.
I love that, Ty. Thank you. Okay. What's next?
So the next is about, how do we look forward to the what's next with a little bit more positivity? So seeing this as an opportunity and not a challenge, really not letting the future of uncertainty instill a fear of inaction. So as companies start implementing hybrid workforces, strategies, what are you most looking forward to? So again, very consistent messaging, more balance is, it's not overwhelming as much as the other one was, but 41% said they were looking for more balance. So very consistent with the last one about more flexibility or the loss of flexibility, but enough people also want to really recreate the new norms that we are creating for work. And of course, some people miss people in connection. So if we look at the whole picture, and of course, career opportunities is the other option we provided, but if we look at the whole picture, it's very holistic. It's about looking into the future. It's about community and connection with each other, but it's also creating space for a lot of the things maybe we didn't have space for.
Yeah, it's interesting how there was real balance between balance and people and connection. So can you talk a little bit about the juxtaposition between the two? Because it's almost like those are opposing, right? Like the balance of being able to kind of step away, but also the desire to be in connection with others.
Yeah, I think it's not about, the world isn't binary, so we don't expect anyone's everyday or even their personalities to be. People want to be able to connect, but have it be really meaningful. And so have the ability and the option to step away when they feel like something else is more important or needs their physical presence. Right? Mentally, we're able to multitask and provide attention in a lot of different places, but maybe, of course, physically we can't.
Yeah, this was an interesting one. I just got a lot in terms of, again, just the optionality and the creativity that we have to have as leaders to make sure that, we're meeting the needs of our employees. So I think we had one more insight that we were able to collect from our community.
Yes. So this one is about the future. So again, when we're looking at organizations, what are they doing to make sure that they're doing this right? And what do they need to be doing, per our responders? So a lot of them wanted all four. They really think that this is a multi-pronged approach. So first, commitment to a dynamic approach. What that looks like is when we say and roll out policy or procedure, be okay with pivoting and changing and adapting as the needs of your employees and your organizations change and grow. And then, but also engaging the employees in building those solutions and what those policy looks like. You'll get buy-in much easier that way anyway. And so they want to be involved. They want to have their voices heard. And then, of course, leaders to set a direction and then, of course, lead ahead. So lead by example, lead by service, lead by empathy. Yeah. And then, of course, empathy-driven decision-making, of course.
If there's ever an extremely positive byproduct from the last 18 months, particularly as a leader of an organization, is that we no longer have a choice but to get our employees involved.
Yeah.
And again, we're seeing that at the small scale in our organization, Thoughtium. but we've even seen some of the largest organizations make the news. Apple, right, for one, as an organization that maybe tried to take a bit of more of a centralized approach at creating strategy and delivering that news and that information to their people. And there was like a groundswell, like a ground up pushback, right? And it not only said, we need choice, but we want to be involved in the decision making.
Yes.
Yeah.
People want agency, right? Even Google, I think, did the same thing, rolled out a process that employees disagreed with. I think ultimately it's about listening and it's about learning together. Nobody knows or has all the answers, and these are very specific to your organization. So you'll know what's best, but by listening to each other.
Wonderful. Okay, so I really enjoyed that, particularly because I thought that was a really good balance of cross-industry insights in the Rosie Report, and even a bit of just a feet-on-ground pulse of what's happening in our growing community. If we had to maybe distill it into one or two or potentially three key points, what are the biggest takeaways from the insights that we gathered before we get into the perspective?
That people want change and they want agency of that change, and they're not really looking forward to going back to the old normal. So let's take that out of our vernacular even, and think about what the new horizon looks like, and let's get everyone involved. Let's make it inclusive and do it with intention, and realize that we're all humans at the end of the day.
So, these insights have led, there's been a lot of data and research and insights that have been coming at us. I think one of the most interesting things is that there maybe hasn't been a lot of direction or a lot of, okay, so we know that people want agency, we know that people want choice, we know that they want to be involved in the decision making, but what can we do, as leaders and as teams? What are the three things that we can focus on to make sure that we're collecting these insights and we're reacting to them in a very kind of direct and healthy way? And so we want to move into the Thoughtium perspective. This perspective is a collective sense of real strategy and action that we can take in order to meet the needs of our entire team. So we take these insights and we come together and we say, okay, what are the 2 or 3 really key focus areas for us as we navigate this new kind of hybrid model? So tell us a little bit about the perspective and maybe tee up what's one of the first pillars or focus areas in terms of navigating this change moving forward.
Okay. Simply kind of, let's go high level. You have to listen to your employees. You have to let them know that you trust them and you lead with that trust. And 3, you have to also understand that we're all in this together. And so practicing this perpetual beta state of iteration, improvements, and pivoting if something doesn't work. If I go back to the listen, we're coming off of a very emotional 18 months. It's been a lot physically, emotionally, health-wise, safety-wise, and let's acknowledge it. Let's acknowledge that we've all gone through a lot, and emotionally, let's provide the space and create the space to communally exhale a little bit. And listen to what the needs of your employees are, not just about whether they want to come in or not, but what are they gaining by coming in, or what are they losing by coming in, and what are they gaining by working remote, and what are they losing by working remote. I think we've all had those micro adjustments that we've been making, like I said, quietly. Let's put them out into the world and listen and lead with that kind of information.
And what has that meant for us, tactically? I know the way that I've experienced that for us is that we're creating a lot more open space for these types of discussions. And it's a good combination of full team discussions as well as individuals. So I think we learned, like, you have to bake it into the one-on-one discussions, and you also have to create intentional space for your entire team, and maybe speak to then, what are some of the guardrails, or what are some of the operating norms for when you do hold that space for people to come forward?
Yeah. You want to make any decision as informed as possible. So similarly to how we were, at the doorstep looking out, that's what you want to do as well. So look at what the research and the marketplace is saying so that you can kind of understand the overall consensus of what people are feeling. Then similarly, conduct a survey for your organization and get the feeling of what your employees say. But about direct influence, talk to the people that report to you, that are in your teams, that work with you. What are they feeling? So similarly, the same approach of getting information, understanding the stories behind them, and using that to create a perspective or a policy for your team.
Wonderful. Okay, the second thing that I heard was a trust. This is a term that has been at the forefront of a lot of our leaders and our organizations for decades. There was a book called Speed of Trust that I still refer to. It's probably 20 years old. And it's about how quickly you can get to a certain sense of transparency that allows, and trust that allows you to make decisions more quickly. To me, that term has evolved, and trust might mean something a little bit differently. So what does trust mean today that maybe it didn't mean 2 years ago or 5 years ago?
Yeah, and in the virtual space, we used to think of trust as something you can feel and see and touch. It was very like experience based. And now with everyone behind a computer screen, you can't see a lot of things. And so the data that feeds your trust is kind of void, empty even, or incomplete. And so a lot of it is focused on us creating other avenues of building trust and what that looks like for, a two-person relationship, a leader and a team. And in my opinion, I think people rise up to the trust that you allow them to have. So they want to be, have autonomy, have trust. So if you give them that space, they'll step up.
It's wonderful. How can we, in more of a tactical sense, kind of a day-to-day sense, continue to develop and drive trust with individuals or with teams?
First and foremost, you have to say it, the actual words, like "I trust you," and that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Even that felt a little different for me. Thank you for trusting me.
You're welcome. I do trust you. But isn't it powerful?
It is powerful.
And we
Yes.
don't say it enough. And
Yeah.
we have to actually say it. And then you follow through with actions. So then you say, I trust you to make the decisions that are right for you. And you'll let me know if you need my support. And let them hold the solution in figuring it out. And if that doesn't work, let's have a conversation about it. Let's keep coming back. It's this feedback loop of I trust you, engage me when you need me, and let me guide you when you don't have guidance.
I go back to the first insight from the Rosie report about the divide between leaders of organizations. I think it was 70% of leaders of organizations wanting people to come back to the office, and employees that wanted more flexibility. Do we think that trust might be behind that 70%?
I think so. There's and I recognize that leadership they have commitments to the business that they have to, be mindful of. So it's a balancing act, and really managers are going to be tested about how do they manage the commitments to the business as well as the trust and output of their employees. And trust is hard. It's something that you want to be able to build in person and while you're right next to the other person. But we have to really challenge ourselves on what that looks like in a virtual environment.
Yeah, wonderful. The third and final key pillar to the Thoughtium perspective on the new hybrid workplace is this concept of being in a perpetual beta state, a perpetual testing state, and we do a lot of work in the design thinking process. We believe very strongly in what we call creative confidence, your ability to put pen to paper, even if you don't know the solution, and also your ability to test and try and retest, allowing, deeper insights to inform how you shape something along the way. Re-entry, reintegration, continuity, all of these things are not something that a few leaders or a department can go away and solve for.
Yeah.
We as an organization need to be in more of what we call a beta state. It's the first time that we've put this term forward. So what does becoming more of a beta state organization look like?
Yeah, I think the term was originally coined by Brene Brown, the goat, of course. So she and Priya Parker came forward about the art of gathering and just like looking at what the virtual space looks like. And the beta state really stuck with us. This creative confidence, like you talked about, just really leaning into that, but knowing that there's going to be mistakes, but that we're all in this together, and that there's a level of like fail safe because of the trust that we all have with each other. And how powerful is it for a leader of an organization to say, you know what, I don't have all the answers, but here's what we're going to try, and we're all going to try to figure it out together. I think it can be powerful.
Yeah. And if anything, again, another positive byproduct of the pandemic is that it almost threw all of our organizations into a state of beta.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe the first 6 to 12 months, it was, man, we need to redefine and rethink our business model. And the next 6 to 12 months, which we're kind of in the thick of now, is all about how do we organize and support our team around this new business model. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know the business of Thoughtium has changed fairly significantly over the course of the last 18 months. And so has the dynamic of our people. But that has challenged us then to be more of a design thinking organization, trying new things, creating the safety, the psychological safety for people to be able to try and fail. And one very specific example of that is in our recruiting strategy. And again, this kind of happened naturally, but with everything moving to more of a virtual first world, we very quickly went from a Chicago-based startup consultancy to now an organization that has multiple locations, mm-hmm. and folks that have the freedom and the autonomy to work from afar.
Yeah.
And that all happened in the last 12 to 18 months. It happened because we had the mindset of being able to try and test. And some things have not worked out, some things have. Yeah. And that's been really fun. So again, I think, if the first focus was, hey, your business needs to be in a beta state. The second is your people also need to be in a beta state.
Yeah. And doesn't Jeff Bezos kind of talk about that with Amazon? He thinks his principle is that every day is day one.
Mm-hmm.
So similarly, just really allowing the room to have just trial by error.
Yeah, love that. Okay, so let's recap our 3-part perspective.
Yes.
I'm sure there's probably 10 more that we can add to it. But from our insights, we really wanted to focus on 3 key drivers of success as we start to think about the new hybrid model. And Anjana, let's just do one more quick summary on the Thoughtium perspective here.
Yes. So listen to your employees, listen to the marketplace, listen to your teams, get as much data about what they're feeling, not just about the numbers, but their emotions as well. And then lead by trust, let them know you trust them, let them know you trust them to make their own decisions. And then of course, practice the perpetual beta state.
Wonderful. Okay, I think we have a time for a couple of questions, and part of the Thoughtium Perspectives format is that we also source questions from our community. So I think we have maybe 2 or 3. We can do it in quick, kind of rapid fashion, mm-hmm. but we have a few here that we'll share, and Anjana, maybe you can lead us through.
Sure.
The first question is from our community, and it asks, how do you navigate a company that says they let employees work from home, but the culture there looks down on those who do? This is such an interesting one.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to maybe the survey results where people are saying things of what they want anonymously, but the divide is felt in this space. I think you have to create space for dialogue. And we all contribute to culture, whether it's, part of it comes down from leadership. There's definitely that, but there's also individual responsibility in this. How am I perpetuating, something positive towards this culture? And how am I perpetuating something negative towards this culture? Doing self-reflection to begin with, mm-hmm. but also initiating conversations with leaders.
Wonderful. Next question. If the point of coming into the office is to create community, then wouldn't meetups for team building events outside of an office do the same thing and be more effective? So I think the heart of this question is, if the connection piece is what we're really after in face-to-face, why are we not thinking about a model that really focuses on kind of the social and the team building being face-to-face and everything else being virtual?
It's a good question, and for this, it depends.
Depends on your business.
It depends on your business.
Yeah.
It depends
Yeah.
on the kind of work that you're doing and your role, your team, your seniority. There's a lot of variables to this, but it's a valid question to ask about why we're coming back. And it's something that companies should think about.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And again, I think this is being in a perpetual state of beta will help inform this.
Yes.
I today just flew back from Los Angeles. We were starting a small office out in LA. Shout out to Grift and Emily, who are getting things running out in the West Coast. And, on the flight on the way home, I was really reflecting on, the pros and cons of, the community of being together the way that we were the last few days. Of course, it was important for us to physically be there to get the office stood up and to make some decisions there locally. But we had a dinner Tuesday night that you just could not have recreated virtually.
Yeah,
and it almost, it just blasted through every virtual happy hour or, virtual social event that, we all tried our best to do over the course of the last 18 months. And you just realize that face-to-face is so important. At the same time, I go back to, it does depend on your business. So we are a client services business. We are in service to our clients. Mm-hmm. And so, our workplace norms no longer, or not only have to support the way that we exist as a team and the way that we support each other, but they have to exist in support of our clients. And one would argue that the relationship to our clients should be our primary orientation. Mm-hmm. And so, part of that then is understanding, how do we show up best for our clients? And that might mean differently than the way that we show up for each other. We might offer a little bit more flexibility in the way that we connect as a team, but there might be some more hard and fast rules in terms of the way that we show up for our clients. We have clients reaching out to us now asking for face-to-face workshops. Yeah. And there are some situations where we might be able to make the case that those workshops are virtual. Those situations where those workshops are more effective virtual, and we've actually found a lot of that in the L&D space. We're seeing that when you design specifically for a virtual meeting or a virtual workshop, that's equally as hard to unravel as it was from live to virtual. So, part of our business will be what is the most effective solution for our clients, and some of that can be face-to-face. Yeah. But I think the point here in the question is, let's continue to not let go of those opportunities to storm and norm as a team face-to-face.
Yeah. And, it's about intentionality of and being situationally aware. Yeah.
Okay, I think we have one more question. This is a simple one. How do we measure productivity? Ooh, this is a big one.
This is good. So I have a couple of thoughts on this. Productivity is kind of like a finicky variable to measure. Because it's influenced by so many factors like resources, accessibility, motivation. So if you're thinking about measuring productivity in context to remote or in the office, I think you'll get murky data. We just don't know. Mm-hmm. But what we do have is data from the last 18 months. And that's a very good insight for all of our organizations to see if we were able to be productive and, look at the reports and the earnings, use that as a measurement. Yeah. But if you go into this hybrid strategy and you're going to think about measuring productivity, I don't think it's going to be received.
And I think if you're going into it leading with productivity metrics, I don't think it's going to work well.
No.
Yeah. Wonderful. Okay. So I think that rounds out our questions and it also rounds out the first phase of this perspective. So, Anjana, first and foremost, I want to thank you for stepping into the table. It's been so great to work with you and the broader team on this. I know that the entire team at Thoughtium here are just so thrilled to bring this perspective to you in this new 3-part series. So, first and foremost, Anjana, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you so much for having me.
So today was all about the insights that we were able to garner from the marketplace. Next week, we're really going to be going deeper into how do we redefine the workplace. So how are we resetting culture? How are we bringing culture at the forefront of the way that we deploy new models and the way that we measure new models? So if leading with productivity is not the best choice, maybe leading with culture is. And we're going to talk a little bit about how can we redefine the workplace. We're going to come with this perspective, and again, 3 parts. We'll be bringing the outside in. We will share a Thoughtium perspective, and then we'll talk about some actions that you can take day to day as leaders. So Grift and Aaron and Margot will be leading that discussion next week. I will be proudly stepping down from lead facilitation roles here. I will be letting go of the rope, if you will. And right. I really cannot wait for Grift and Aaron and Margot to step forward with this unique part 2 of our perspectives. Our perspectives and the entire Navigating Now series can be found at thougtium.com/live. You also can look at some of our written content, particularly around how to build culture. And Anjana just published a great article that is in support of how we build for the new hybrid workplace. That can be found at thoughtteam.com/perspective. So a lot of great written content. This content will be available for you and your teams. We'll be sharing some questions that you might lead in discussion with your teams. And we've had clients in our community use this content every once in a while to start the discussion. So, we'd be happy for you all to leverage this content within your teams to really get the dialogue going. We are here every Thursday at 3 p.m. Central. Anjana, thank you again. We hope you all have a wonderful rest of the week, and we'll see you next Thursday.